Obviously, Metal Blade's known for classic bands like King Diamond, Slayer, Cannibal Corpse, but there's a lot of awesome deep cuts that Metal Blade have put out over the years. One of those bands for me is In Battle. The record's Welcome to the Battlefield. Definitely recommend checking out that record. The drumming's killer and the riffs are just like so in your face, super technical but like catchy at the same time. It's just like a punishing record, so I definitely recommend checking out In Battle. I always appreciated that about Metal Blade, where they're not just like kind of like a one-size-fits-all label. Like there's so many different diverse acts. They've got death metal, thrash metal, black metal, power metal, Viking death metal bands like Amon Amarth. There's just such a wide array of different artists on that label, and yet all of those artists can call Metal Blade home, and it totally makes sense.
They kind of have this bar. No matter what genre that they're trying to do, it's the best of the genre they're trying to get out there. Even before people know it is a genre. Even before people they know they should like this band, you know. We're around for 40 years, Metal Blade's around for 40 years. It's a long time to try to stay relevant. We've been there for so long, and it's because Brian still likes what I do. It's still exciting for him because he's involved. He's instrumentally involved in my career in Lizzie Borden, this band that came to him, you know, 40 years ago and is still around, and he's still instrumentally trying to figure out how to do the best for this rock act.
The legacy they have is that they supported heavy metal in all of its forms for decades. They've definitely signed bands that didn't make business sense, but just people at the label loved the band. And it's always nice to see one of those bands that maybe on paper didn't make a whole lot of sense to sign end up doing really well, you know, just because they loved that band so much and believed in them so much.
They're not a one-trick pony, which I think that a lot of labels are very narrow in that, and Metal Blade's never been that. They've kind of kept their fingers on the pulse of, the music listening audience far better than I have. How's that? You can't think about deathcore without Whitechapel. Like, they're a staple in that genre. The band 3, that band was awesome. You know, they were probably a little bit more in the rock genre, but incredible band. The American Way, Sacred Reich, that's an amazing deep cut. You know, they're very, Sacred Reich brand of thrash, but then they also had like a song, I think it was called 31 Flavors or something like that, which was very almost like Mr. Bungle-esque. And great band.
My deep cut from Metal Blade would be Omen, the band Omen and the album Battle Cry. When I was first starting out playing drums and pre-Cannibal Corpse and all that, we ended up learning the song Battle Cry. That was kind of what we, you're learning all these covers, you're learning bands that you, of course, love, and I always loved that album.
I was thinking through stuff, Omen's first album, an Armored Saint. It's like a 3-song, full like 12-inch EP, some rarities. Yeah, here's an EP of Trouble. It's got 2 songs on it. It's never been opened, actually, as you can see. That's kind of cool. Their first album on, actually it's on white vinyl, because they were like, they were holy.
One of my all-time favorite bands, period, in my whole list of bands was on Metal Blade, and that's King's X. And they put out Tapehead, which is an amazing record, and I was just cranking it 2 nights ago, and just what a great band. What a great record.
Amazing.
I really love the first couple of Cryptic Slaughter albums. All their stuff is killer, but the ones we listened to the most were Convicted and Money Talks. We just love those guys, just really super aggressive metal, hardcore punk crossover. But Hallows' Eve Monument is an album I listen to a lot. They're a thrash band, but that album had a lot of just really killer mid-paced, super heavy groove parts to it. Just all of it was just like headbanging stuff from start to finish. And I feel like that's an underrated sort of, sleeper kind of an album. People don't really, I don't hear a lot of people talking about the album Monument by Hallows' Eve, but it was one of my favorite albums back in the late 80s. I listened to that all the time. One of the bands that's been on Metal Blade more recently, that's one of my favorites, is Revocation. I really feel like, those guys are a great example of a Metal Blade band in that they have, roots in traditional kinds of metal. You can hear some traditional thrash and death metal in there, but they're also very progressive and forward-thinking kind of musicians. You know, there's a lot of things I hear them do that, yeah, it sounds rooted in tradition, but they're also pushing the envelope a little bit, very progressive.
You get a band like Cannibal that's mad consistent, straight brutality, sick.
Yeah.
You know, our bands which kind of alter sounds a little bit as the years grow, you know?
Fluid.
Rivers of Nile altering, you know? Then the early bands that we're not even familiar with. It's, I don't know.
And then you got Goo Goo Dolls in the 90s.
Dude, ever changing. How's that? But also
Ever-changing.
consistent to the big picture.
Go back to the early days, DRI, Cryptic Slaughter, things like that. It's very impressive and that it's still going on, especially with all the stuff that's happened through time and labels that you've watched kind of fade off and not like evolve to anything, to kind of still go along and evolve, but still keep connected with the extreme element, holding a lot of value to like underground stuff or heavy things.
They
and
stayed
stuff like
true
that.
to like the roots
Yeah.
and became extremely successful with that. Not a lot of labels that are still existent today can say that, you know?
Obviously, the music industry's changed quite a lot. It goes through these metamorphoses almost every 6 months, it seems like. So being a label, that's how do you stay in business when that happens, you know? So you got to give kudos to the label to be able to ride with the tides, you know, whichever way it's going. And I think they've been able to do it. They would be the first ones to tell you that some years aren't so good, but some years are great. But I think they've been able to manage those waters for the last, 40 some years or whatever. And you got to tip your hat to anyone who can do that, you know.
Probably because they're an independent record company. You know, I think that's such a key component behind it. Is that they were an independent label. So Brian he had no problems remaining that way and creating that kind of vibe of this is an independent record company and that's what we do. And we're going to have lots of success doing that.
They're one of the very first independent heavy metal labels in America and worldwide, really. They're just an extremely important heavy metal label that supported all these different kinds of metal and has been consistently doing that the whole time.